So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are discussing objective type or MCQs of the Old English period. There is certain confusion about the date. Some people say that by the mid of the 4th century, the Anglo-Saxons were there, 5th century, sorry. And some say that it begins with 600 AD. So when we talk about Old English period, so that starts from 600. लेकिन एंग्लो सेक्सन्स 450s के अंदर आ चुके थे. सो एंग्लो सेक्शन एज एक्चुअली वहां से स्टार्ट हो जाती है. सो ऑनवर्ड्स जो इंग्लिश पीरियड है वो जब तक इतना इन कौमों का आपस में इम्तिजाज हुआ, एक फॉर्मेशन होना शुरू हुई एक लैंग्वेज की. सो दैट इज बाय 600 AD. So first thing, when Beowulf was composed, England was changing from Dash to Christian literature. So the answer is pagan literature. So Christianity पहले नहीं थी, monks बाद में आए, church बाद में develop हुआ, और उसके बाद फिर आहिस्ता आहिस्ता लोग religion की तरफ आए. उससे पहले there was no one there who believed in Christianity. इस पे like people were not following any church. I hope slides are visible to you. Muzammil, you can go back and come again. I have shared slides for everyone. And then Beowulf reflects both pagan and Christian culture. So if you go through the poem, आपको पता चलेगा कि उसमें जो pagan literature है या जो उनकी pagan culture है, जिसमें आपको non-believers का एक touch नजर आ रहा है, that is also found in Beowulf. और also the elements of Christianity वो भी आपको उसमें नजर आते हैं. सो बेओवुल्फ में पैगन और क्रिश्चियन दोनों कल्चर्स का जिक्र किया गया. सेल्ट्स, जिससे सेल्टिक्स बना, दे इन्वेडेड इंग्लैंड इन 500 BC. सो 500 BC में वो यहाँ पे आए, और रोमन्स जो थे दे वर देयर बाय 55 BC. ये 55 BC में थे इन इंग्लैंड. Anglo-Saxons invaded in 469 AD. So this is the time when Anglo-Saxons were there in England. यहाँ से आहिस्ता आहिस्ता यानी एज एंग्लो-सैक्सन एज यहाँ से स्टार्ट हो जाती है. जो 600 AD है दैट इज फॉर द इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज. वो इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज की एज है. इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज की एक तरह से इनिशियल फॉर्म में जो डेवलपमेंट थी वो फेज स्टार्ट हो चुका था. Anglo-Normans, they invaded in 1066 AD in England. So Old English was spoken from about 600 AD to 1100 AD. ये तकरीबन Old English period था जिसमें ये Old English बोली जाती थी, the beginning of English or the starting of English language, the commencement of a new language. ये almost 600 AD से 1100 का जो time है, that is known as Old English period in history of English literature. Widsith is also a pagan poem, क्योंकि ये Beowulf का टाइम था जिसमें ये लिखी जा रही थी. So that happens to be a pagan poem जिसके अंदर हमें church, Christianity इनके references नहीं मिलते, बल्कि deities के and so many gods and goddesses उनके references मिलते हैं जो कि मुख्तलिफ mythologies पे based हैं. So Dash is the earliest English poet whose name is known. So that is Caedmon. So Caedmon is the earliest English poet जिसका नाम याद है, तारीख में लिखा गया 657 AD, 684 AD. This is the time when he was working. Greatest English poem, and which is also the first English epic poem, is Beowulf. So Beowulf is a story of a person जो कि ट्रैवल करता है और किसी एम की तलाश में, सबलिमिटी की तलाश में. सो इन दोज डेज ट्रैवलिंग वाज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, और एपिक पोइट्री में ट्रैवलिंग का वैसे एक बड़ा रोल होता है. सो ही अंडरगोज अ मैसिव ट्रैवल एंड रीचेस a place where he has to kill a monster, and then afterwards he kills the mother of that monster and eventually becomes the king of the land. और एंड में एक ड्रैगन से इसकी लड़ाई होती है जो इसे जिसको ये स्ले कर देता है, लेकिन आफ्टरवर्ड्स ही इज हिमसेल्फ फैटली वुंडेड और ये मर जाता है. The author of Beowulf is unknown, so he is anonymous. We don't know कि Beowulf किसने लिखा. Beowulf is the story of a brave young man, Beowulf, and that has 3,182 lines. So in this epic poem, Beowulf sails to Denmark with a band of warriors to save the king of Denmark, Hrothgar, from a monster. So उस monster से जो Danish king होता है, Hrothgar, उसको बचाने के लिए Beowulf sail करता है डेनमार्क की तरफ. So he saves Danish king from a terrible monster called Grendel. So this name is important. So Grendel is the first monster that Beowulf comes across, जिससे इसका पाला पड़ता है और उसको eventually ये मार देता है. The mother of Grendel, who sought vengeance from the death of his son, Grendel, was also killed by Beowulf. So उसकी माँ जब इंतकाम लेने आती है, so it happens to be again a very terrible fight क्योंकि she is so strong. लेकिन Beowulf उसकी मदर को भी slay कर देता है. After 40 years, Beowulf slays a dragon. But in this fight, he also himself receives a mortal wound and dies. So that is the dragon with him is fighting by the end of this poem, this longer poem or epic poem. A number of short poems from the Exeter Book, which have come to be described as wisdom poetry. So Exeter Book को भी हम discuss करेंगे. It was a very famous collection of the literary work. So इसमें से एक collection थी short poems की, क्योंकि उसमें epics भी थी और short poems भी थी. तो short poems की एक collection जो इसमें से ली गई उसे wisdom poetry कहा जाता है. They are lyrical and Bayesian in their description of the up and down of fortunes of life. So ये जो poems हैं, इन ये जो विजडम पोइट्री में इंक्लूड की गई, इनमें लाइफ के अप्स एंड डाउन्स, उसमें फॉर्च्यून्स, किस्मत के खेल, वो सारा कुछ डिस्कस किया गया. एक लिरिकल नेचर की ये पोम्स थी, लिरिकल स्टाइल था इनका. Seafarer. So the Seafarer is the story of a somber exile from home on the sea. A person was exiled and he was there on sea. So ये massive journey होता है इसमें. This is very important poem जो कि उस टाइम में लिखी गई along with Beowulf. So it was also translated later by Ezra Pound, जो कि हमारा एक modern time का एक writer है, poet है. उसने इसको translate किया later on, The Seafarer को. The Seafarer had 124 lines, 124 lines थी. और उस जमाने में ये सब कुछ alliteration में लिखा जाता था. So the Seafarer was a part of the Exeter Book. So Exeter Book का ये एक part था जिसमें से ये poem को collection में से निकाला गया. जैसे कि मैंने बताया उसमें longer poems भी थी, epic poems भी थी, shorter poems भी थी. Shorter poem की एक collection को wisdom poetry कहा गया. उसी तरह ये एक longer poem थी जो कि उसी book का एक part थी. So what was the Exeter Book? So Exeter Book ये 10th century की एक book थी जो कि Anglo-Saxon poetry के ऊपर मुश्तमिल थी. So it was basically a compilation जो Anglo-Saxon poetry की एक anthology थी. It was a collection of Anglo-Saxon poetry known as the Exeter Book, जिसके अंदर बहुत सारे लोगों के works, known, unknown लोगों के works उसके अंदर published थे. So ये Exeter Book थी, it was ये वैसे आपको एक description या detail दे रहा हूँ कि ये था क्या. ये Exeter Cathedral जो था उसे donate की गई थी Leofric की तरफ से, जो कि first bishop था Exeter का in 10th century. और इसके almost 131 leaves से, leaf is a page जिसकी leaf has 2 pages basically. और इसमें the first 8 have been replaced with other leaves and the original first 8 pages are lost. तो initial जो documents थे वो गुम गए थे, उनको replace कर दिया गया था. तो old English poetry के हवाले से सबसे massive collection is known as the Exeter Book. The Wife's Lament and the Husband's Message, ये दो बड़ी important poems थी, shorter but important. So ये wisdom poetry में से ली गई, again from the book of Exeter. A man must conquer pride, not kill it. It's taken from, so this line is taken from the Seafarer, जिसको हम discuss कर रहे थे. That is a poem about exile. Though woefully toiling on the wintry seas, with churning oars in the icy wave, homeless and hopeless, he fled from fate. So this is from the Wanderer. So Wanderer also was a tale of someone who's trying to find his sublimity. ये भी उस ज़माने की एक मशहूर poem थी. So it has 115 lines, and the lines are alliterative. Alliterative is the use of alliteration, जिसमें हम एक मुख्तलिफ किस्म के words को ऐसा use करते हैं कि उनकी sound similar आती है, like how high his honor holds his haughty head. So this is an element or example of alliteration. I also told about my book, Muhammad the Messenger. So this is also alliteration. The Crown of Creation, this is also alliteration. And the whole book that I wrote, and that is available on Amazon, that is completely in alliteration. Each line has alliteration, so that is the unique book in its kind. So alliteration was used in Anglo-Saxon poetry, and even afterwards, ये उनका एक style था. They loved writing this way. So two important figures in Old English poetry were Cynewulf and Cardamon. So we have discussed Cardamon. There was also a person, Cynewulf, who was writing in those days. ये भी उस ज़माने में एक writer था, उन तमाम पुराने writers में से एक writer. So ये जो works हैं, these are written by Cynewulf, जिसमें Juliana, the Fate of the Apostles, Christ and Eileen. So these works were written by Cynewulf. So as far as history is concerned, जो हम पढ़ रहे हैं, it is all about कि कौन कब पैदा हुआ, कब उसकी death हुई, कौन सा उसका important work था, वो कब लिखा गया. So it is like you need a patience of stone to remember all these things. आपको बड़ी एक strong memory रखनी पड़ेगी इन सब names को और इनकी date of births and deaths को याद रखने के लिए. In case if you are not able to cope with these, then try remembering the most important people and works. तो उनको जरूर याद रखें. So Alfric, he is an important prose writer during Old English period. Like he would be writing about the people, time, situation, environment. So he was a prose writer of the ancient time. 597 AD was the time when Saint Augustine came to England. So Saint Augustine was a famous saint of Christianity. He came in 597 AD, which means after death of Jesus Christ, in 597 years after the death of Jesus Christ. So he's mentioned in Chaucer's Monk's Tale, or even in the character of the monk. Danish fleet was captured by Alfred the Great in 895 AD. So this was important incident of history. Anglo-Saxons, they included Angles, Saxons and Jutes. ये tribes थे जो कि मिलके Anglo-Saxons कहलाए. So इनमें Angles भी थे, Saxons भी थे, Jutes भी थे. The old Saxon word angle or angle meant a hook. So इसका जो original meaning था उसका मतलब hook था. So ये उसका literal meaning की हम बात करें. And Saxon comes from the word cx, which meant swordsman. यानी जंगजू किस्म के इंसान, तलवार बाजी वाले इंसान. So this was a combination of two words, and these were the literal meanings of them. Anglo-Saxons in में और Anglo-Saxons के अंदर जो ruling class थी, that was known as earls. So उन्हें earls कहा जाता था. Or the lower class of that time was known as churls. So earls and churls, easy to remember. Jo upper class थी, that was earls, like same sound, upper earls, and churls chota. So in this way, lower class jo thi wo churls कहलाती थी. Now this term was used by them to refer to destiny, fate. So it's a word कह सकते हैं. So the word word, W-Y-R-D, was used to refer to fate. ये fate के लिए use होता था. So the monk Augustine arrived in Canton 597 AD, और उसके बाद हम देखते हैं कि Christianity की जो development है, that is like strengthened, और उसके बाद हम वहाँ पे Christian church, उसके establishments देखते हैं, जिसमें फिर उसके बाद आने वाले जो लिटरेचर है उसमें क्रिश्चियनिटी के इम्पैक्ट्स बहुत ज्यादा हैं. So the poetry was full of canons and repetition plus alliteration. So alliteration was the most important thing among them. So which people began their invasion in conquest of southwestern Britain around 450? So they were Anglo-Saxons. जो 450 BC so 450 AD के बाद ये उधर आते हैं, and they started gathering up natives को भगा के एक rule को हासिल कर लेना. So by 69 they were completely joined together. So which hero made his earliest appearance in Celtic literature before becoming a staple subject in French, English, and German literature? So that happens to be King Arthur. He's a famous hero, and many writers have written their, or many poets have composed their poetry on this hero named as King Arthur. For many years, there was no native literature in England. What changed that? So this thing changed कि जो island था वो largely Christian हो गया, और उसमें उस वक्त तक कोई native literature नजर नहीं आया, क्योंकि एक religious transition का period था जिसमें change आ रही थी. So whose ecclesiastical history of English people recounts the story of the church in England? So that happens to be Bede, known like his title was something else, but he is known as venerable or respectable. That is, venerable means respectable. Bede was his name in 731 AD. So he is the historian of the time who wrote about historical incidents of the time, or saved them by writing them. What Old English poem tells the story of resistance against a Scandinavian raid? So this is the Battle of Maldon. So this Battle of Maldon is about the resistance जो कि Scandinavian, जो Scandinavia जिसमें Finland है, Norway है, इन लोगों ने जब raid किया तो उसको resistance के हवाले से जो poem लिखी गई, that is Battle of Maldon. What king of West Saxons supported literature, even translating Boethius' Consolation of Philosophy? So it was King Alfred who supported literature or allowed translations of certain kind. And this Boethius happens to be a Roman senator. He was a consul, magistrate. He was a philosopher as well. जिसकी हमने बात की, जिसकी ट्रांसलेशंस, जिसके वर्क की या फिलोसफी को ट्रांसलेट किया गया, जो किंग एल्फ्रेड ने जिसको अलाउ किया. सो ही वाज अ सेनेटर, एक रोमन सेनेटर था, also a philosopher as well. Beats tell the story of an unlearned cowherd who instituted a school of Christian poetry. So it was Cardamom. So वो जो बताता है कि जिसने Christian poetry को जो लेके आया, जिसने start किया, it was Cardamom who started working on it. The author who wrote down Beowulf was probably a Christian. So we don't know who he was. लेकिन Beowulf को पढ़ के लगता है कि इसको लिखने वाला Christian होगा. अगर वो पैगन होता तो उसके अंदर क्रिश्चियनिटी के जो एलिमेंट्स हमें नजर आते हैं वो नजर ना आते, क्योंकि इट वाज almost unknown in these areas. So who's the young hero of the poem, The Dream of the Rood? So it is Jesus Christ. So that is allegorical poem. Jesus Christ को as a hero दिखाया गया इस poem के अंदर. So where does this quote come from? The Middle Earth, mankind's guardian, eternal Lord, afterwards made. So this quote is taken from Caidemon's hymn. So he wrote many hymns. That is why it is said कि वो Christianity को लेके आया या Christianity को उसने populate किया. So one of his hymn, ये उस बड़ी मशहूर जो hymn थी उसमें से ये lines ली गई. और ये quote, wonderful was the triumph tree, and I stained with sins, wounded with wrongdoings. So this is again from the dream of Hood that we were talking about, जिसमें Jesus Christ को as hero दिखाया गया. Yes, we have heard of the glory of the Spear Danes king in the old days, how the princes of that people did brave deeds. So these lines are the beginning or initial lines of Beowulf, the famous epic work. ये उसकी initial lines हैं. Now, the Battle of Maldon जिसकी हमने बात की, जिसमें resistance को रोका गया. So इसमें दो important characters थे. They are Berthnot and Atwald. So ये इसके इस poem के important characters थे. So in Beowulf, what is a Thane? So a Thane is a warrior. Beowulf में Thane का word एक warrior के लिए use किया गया, and Thane is used in many different connotation afterwards. So इस कौन सी poem है जिसमें exile एक बंदा है जो कि सर्च कर रहा है एक नए लैंड के लिए, नई प्लेस के लिए. So this is the wanderer. Wanderer में ऐसा होता है. Primarily जो literary device use की जाती थी in Anglo-Saxon poetry, that was alliteration. He who is alone often lives to find favor. So these lines are the beginning lines of the poem, The Wanderer. Vikings ने 787 AD after death of Christ 787 AD में अटैक किया था इंग्लैंड के ऊपर. Anglo-Saxons almost 600 years तक रहे इंग्लैंड में. So उनके जो रूल कह लें या उनकी जो कल्चरल जो एक चीज उन्होंने चलाई, so that remained there for almost 600 years. उसके बाद का जो पीरियड है उसमें उन्हें हम नॉर्मन कॉन्क्वेस्ट्स कहते हैं, क्योंकि उनकी जो सेटलमेंट्स यानी जो उनकी सेटलमेंट से लेके नॉर्मन कॉन्क्वेस्ट तक, ये पीरियड जो बीच में था 469 से 1100 AD तक, तो या नॉर्मन कॉन्क्वेस्ट तक, उस टाइम तक एंग्लो सैक्सन्स अपना काम करते रहे, रूल करते रहे. So who described the Celts as light-skinned, fair-haired and blue-eyed? So it was Julius Caesar. ये Julius Caesar का रिमार्क था Celtics के बारे में या Celts के बारे में. Anglo-Saxon originally came from northern Germany. So Germany के एरिया से आए, उसमें भी most importantly north से. Which Anglo-Saxon kingdom? क्योंकि tribes थे और बहुत ज्यादा उनमें कबीले होते थे. तो जो Wessex था, it is the same place जो कि हार्डी के नॉवेल्स का भी एक बैकड्रॉप है या सेटिंग है, एक प्रॉपर थीम जिस हवाले से वो लिखता है. सो ये उसी एरिया की बात हो रही है. वहां के एंग्लो सैक्सन्स 800 जो था टाइम उसमें रूल करते रहे. बाय 800 जो सेटल हुए इंग्लैंड में और इन्वेजन जिनकी थी, दे वर फ्रेंच. और ये इन्वेजन लेटर ऑन contributed to the invasion of Anglo-Normans, जो कि नॉर्मन कंक्वेस्ट थी, वो इसका रिजल्ट थी. There were nobles called who owned land and reported to the king. So those were also called thanes. एक थेन वो थे जो बेओवुल्फ में वॉरियर के तौर पे यूज हुआ. नोबल्स को भी आफ्टरवर्ड्स थेन कहा गया. King of Wessex there was a king of Wessex उन 800s ADs में जिसने डिफीट किया डेन्स को और एस्टैब्लिश की एक टेरिटरी विद देम, एक ट्रीटी की उनसे, वायदा किया. सो इट वाज अल्फ्रेड द ग्रेट जो कि एक फेमस किंग था उन ट्राइबल एरियाज में. Original inhabitants of Britons were Romans. So beginning or initially जो ये काम start हुआ, that started with Romans. उसके बाद फिर ये सारी changes आए जिसमें हम देखते हैं Anglo-Saxons आए, फिर Anglo-Normans आए, and then comes some then properly Renaissance and its works or its time started. So this was Anglo-Saxon age, and the MCQs